Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop reacting, someone suddenly gets louder, colder, or strangely desperate? It can feel like your silence flips a switch. And when someone has strong narcissistic traits, that switch is often panic. Not because you did something dramatic, but because you stopped doing something predictable. You used to explain yourself. You used to defend your intentions. You used to respond to the guilt texts, the subtle digs, the "I guess I'm just the worst" comments. And then one day, you didn't. No argument, no big speech, no emotional fireworks, just calm, or distance, or one neutral sentence. And suddenly they're messaging more, calling more, rewriting history, or acting like you've committed a crime, just because you stopped reacting. Now let's reframe this. What if I told you your reaction wasn't just a response to them? It was proof. Proof they still had access to your emotional system. Proof they could still influence the room, the mood, the story, the version of reality. So when you stop reacting, it can feel to them like losing oxygen. Not because they need you in a healthy way, but because they need control, certainty, and reflection. And your silence takes all three away. To keep this grounded, we're not diagnosing anyone. Narcissistic traits exist on a spectrum, but certain patterns are common. A strong need to feel significant, sensitivity to shame, craving external validation, and difficulty tolerating losing control of the narrative. Your reaction, especially an emotional reaction, can become the fastest form of validation and control. It's feedback, it's leverage, it's proof. And when you stop, they don't just lose your attention, they lose a regulation tool they've relied on. Let's break down why that can trigger panic through three angles: physical, mental, and neuropsychological. First, the physical layer. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many high conflict dynamics are bodily before they're logical. When you react, your face changes, your voice changes, your posture shifts, your breathing speeds up, you show urgency. And for someone who's used to tracking and shaping other people's emotions, your body is like a dashboard. They can see the impact they're having in real time. But when you stop reacting, your body becomes unreadable. Your face stays calm. Your tone stays steady. You don't rush to fix the tension, and that can be terrifying for someone who depends on emotional cues to feel in control. Because no mirror means no confirmation. No reaction means no measurement. No urgency means no leverage. So they escalate. Not always with rage, sometimes with charm, victimhood, or sudden affection. Anything to get the body language signal back. Here's a small mind blow. Your calm isn't just maturity. To them, it can feel like the lights went out in the control room. And staying neutral isn't being cold. It's simply removing the sensory feedback loop that keeps the dynamic running. Now, the mental layer. In a lot of these dynamics, there's a game with invisible rules. If they criticize, you explain. If they accuse, you defend. If they withdraw, you chase. If they threaten to leave, you prove your loyalty. Over time, your reactions become predictable, and predictability creates power. When you stop reacting, you break the script, and that creates a mental crisis for someone with strong narcissistic traits, because the identity underneath often depends on a story like, "I'm the one who decides what this means. I'm the one who sets the emotional weather. I'm the one people orbit around." So your silence is not just silence, it's a statement. I'm not confirming your version of reality. That threatens the narrative structure they use to feel safe. So they try to pull you back in, often by triggering one of three hooks: provocation, to get anger; victimhood, to get guilt; or charm, to get hope. Because any of those reactions puts you back in your old role: the explainer, the fixer, the emotional supplier. Another mind blow: they're not always chasing you. They're chasing the version of themselves that exists when you react. Now, the neuropsychological layer. Let's talk brain in a simple way. Human beings learn patterns through reinforcement. Action, response, meaning, repetition. If someone has repeatedly learned that pushing buttons leads to emotional output, that output becomes a reward. Not necessarily pleasure like happiness, but relief, certainty, stimulation, power. Your reaction can function like, I still matter. I can still move you. I'm not invisible. I can control the emotional outcome. So when you stop reacting, their brain experiences something like reward withdrawal. They do the usual behavior, but the usual payoff doesn't arrive. And when a payoff disappears, the brain often does something predictable. It escalates the behavior to get the reward back. That's why you might see a sudden spike in intensity when you go neutral. More texts, more accusations, more urgent conversations, more dramatic statements. Not because your calm is wrong, but because the system is trying harder to restore the old reinforcement loop. One more mind blow, your non-reaction doesn't just frustrate them, it destabilizes the conditioning that made the dynamic feel controllable. Now here's the emotional twist. If you've been in a reactive cycle, you might secretly judge yourself. Why did I always take the bait? Why did I explain so much? Why did I feel responsible for their mood? But here's the reframe. A lot of reacting isn't weakness. It's wiring, it's empathy, it's hope, it's conflict avoidance, it's wanting repair. And the moment you stop reacting, that can be your nervous system saying, I'm done confusing intensity with intimacy. I'm done proving myself to someone committed to misunderstanding me. I'm done paying for peace with my emotions. What you thought was your weakness, being sensitive, responsive, caring, can become your strength when it's paired with boundaries and calm. So, what does panic actually look like? When someone with strong narcissistic traits panics, it can show up as love bombing, sudden sweetness, big promises, smear framing, hinting you're the problem to others, baiting, inflammatory comments to trigger anger, urgency, we need to talk right now, rewriting history, you always do this, victim stance, after everything I've done for you. Different masks, same goal. And there's another piece people miss. When you stop reacting, you're not just becoming quieter, you're becoming harder to define. Because in a reactive dynamic, they often assign you a role. The difficult one, the emotional one, the selfish one, the one who always causes problems. But when you go calm, you stop feeding the story that keeps that role alive. And that creates something they hate even more than rejection: ambiguity. Ambiguity means they can't predict you. They can't manage you. They can't wrap up the situation into a neat explanation that makes them feel superior or safe. So they may try to force a reaction just to label you again, to make you look angry, unstable, cold, cruel, anything that restores the old narrative. But calm doesn't give them that. Calm makes the story collapse. And that's why silence can feel like power, to restore access to your emotional response. So here's the question. When you stop reacting, what shows up next? Rage, charm, guilt, urgency? And more importantly, what part of you do they try to pull out? The explainer, the rescuer, the fighter, the apologizer? If this resonates, write one word in the comments: calm. Not as a flex, but as a reminder that your peace doesn't need permission. And if you want more psychology-based tools for staying grounded in difficult dynamics, subscribe. Because your attention is powerful, and the moment you choose where it goes, everything changes.